You're listening to the Adventurous Weirdos podcast by WatcherDM. Learn more at WatcherDM.com or come join our Patreon at patreon.com/WatcherDM. Stay weird. Austin, home.
Gabriel Hernandez.
Those are our names.
Stop. We got him.
Well, I'm Gabriel Hernandez, and this is Austin Home. And we are WatcherDM and QuestCrawl Games Limited.
LTD.
LTD. And this is the Adventurous Weirdos podcast. So you, Adventurous Weirdos, have found your way home.
Yes. Today we're talking about, I think in honor of Halloween, we're going to talk about cobbling together
our favorite Halloweenies.
A Frankenstein edition of D&D out of the parts of the various dead editions that have piled up on our bookcases.
I think calling them dead editions is probably more fair than I want to admit.
Yeah, it's spooky season.
But there's a throbbing
That's
first
true.
edition community out there.
An undead community, one might say.
An undead community. But I was even watching, there was a YouTuber the other day I was watching that was playing second edition, unironically. And I was like, that's my people.
Yeah.
They're still out there.
Pretty baller.
So let's start with what version did you start with?
You know, I started with, I think I started with the same edition everybody starts with, which is your buddy's recollection of how first or second edition worked. But the first edition that I had the books for and I really got into was third.
Yeah.
I remember I went to the game store with my dad. I was all ready to buy the books. And the guy looked me in the eye and he said, listen, kid, there's a whole new edition coming out next month. Don't buy these second edition books. Come back in a month. I'll sell you the new stuff. And I did. And since then, I've been wasting my money on RPG books ever since.
Pretty fair. That's fair. I don't know. I think about that now within the context of us designing stuff.
Yeah.
And is there such a thing as a wasted
RPG book?
Like, I own books that I've only ever read and will probably never run at this point. But still, it's like the roadmap for what not to do.
That's true.
Is nice and vividly painted with.
Yeah. I feel like
lots of typeface.
Book of Vile Darkness for third edition probably falls into that camp where I read it and I was like, this is bad and also dumb. But it probably kept me from doing bad, dumb things at my table for a couple of years. Just being like,
so you know where that line is.
Yeah, you're just like, on second thought, I don't need D&D
to scratch that itch.
Yeah, I don't need D&D to be that edgy.
Yeah.
But what about you? What edition did you start with?
So my first actual game that I played was second edition, and it was my friend Spencer had gotten the Menzo Baranzan Underdark set, like the box set.
Nice.
And so we were playing. My first experience was playing a drow.
Nice.
And I was like, "This is so fucking cool."
Yeah.
And then, so that was my first Dungeons and Dragons experience.
Okay.
At which point I couldn't afford books for Dungeons and Dragons, but I did find, it was by GURPS or Palladium. There was a book called Recon, and it was a Vietnam War RPG. And you like picked an MOS and like went and just lived like a shitty grunt in the jungle. And I never played it. I always wanted to. I never played it. And then there was this really weird RPG that I found. It was likewise like a discount dollar store bin.
Yeah.
And it was like Knights of the Round Table, but like cyber.
It
was like cool. The cyber Arthurian legend. And I've been looking for it ever since. I actually do not. If anybody knows what this game is called, comment, send me a carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
Let me know somehow.
Skywriting.
Yeah. Ibrahim's. I invented a spell that allows you to write in a sky before they added the skywriting spell. I also just published a blog post about my Google spell.
That's right. I saw that. I didn't read it yet.
I'm just pointing at it and going, did you know that this spell exists? It's on D&D Beyond.
You know, I was actually reading the blog again last night. It's apropos of nothing, but I reread the Kenku post that Chelsea wrote.
So good.
So good. Made me want to play a Kenku again.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Wenku, play Kenku.
Yeah, Wenku. Soon.
Okay. So we're talking about our Frankenweenie a
Yeah.
Frankenstein
Let's
D&D
carve up
version.
those old editions into their component parts, choose the best from each, and bring them back together into a semi-cohesive whole.
Sure.
Um,
Now, should we start by admitting, I think, the elephant in the room? I don't think the melee attack has changed dramatically from first edition.
yeah, I mean there's some power curving stuff like
Absolutely, there's power curving stuff,
yeah,
but all that stuff comes down to like weapon design.
or like what the numbers. Do you get an extra +1 every every level, every 2 levels?
Right.
The base attack bonus in third edition, where you got up to like, I'm a level 20 fighter, so I got a +20 for my base attack bonus. I got a +6 for my strength because I got 22 strength at this point, and I got circumstantial +2s from this and that, and blah blah blah. I love third edition very very much, but I think base attack bonus is probably best left on the dust heap of history
Oh yeah,
a little
sure.
bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean there are definitely like the core of the game has not really changed.
Right.
I
And
mean,
ultimately, I guess what I'm saying is we can skip over the part where, yeah, rolling a d20 to hit
yeah,
and rolling damage is
we're
fine.
I'm in favor of D20s. That's going to be a hot take in the RPG community these days, but I think a D20 works just fine.
It's actually funny that that was considered kind of part of the big revolution with Dungeons and Dragons and Chainmail in particular. It was like, because before that they were just using
D6s.
d6s, and Gary had come up with a can with shreds of paper that was like a 1 in 20 dice
Yeah, the
simulator. And
5% die.
it wasn't until way after that they found a math it was a math company. It was like a mathematics, like toys
Huh?
company out in California that printed polyhedral dice,
Really?
and that was like oh, we can get these now.
Yeah,
And getting a icosahedron dice
that's
was,
really
yeah,
interesting.
it's a super. Oh man, the books I've been reading lately. I
Yeah,
dove back into Empire of Imagination and
playing at the world.
playing at the world.
Yeah,
I'll have to lend you those. Yep,
yeah, I'd love to read them.
cool. Anyway,
Um,
so the basics of combat, I think, we'll say they haven't changed.
they're fairly similar. I mean, I think there's some stuff to talk about, like initiative. I think has changed a
That's
lot.
changed enormously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
things like I mean, you can get down to it a little more modularly, but yeah, you're right. The bones are we're not Frankensteining the bones. I think the bones are the
I think
same,
they're the same. I
with
mean,
the
that
exception of fourth edition, which got a little more kind of
even there, the basic attack was still the same.
you're
It
still
was
rolling
you
dice.
roll, you add a modifier, you do some damage,
Hmm.
and that's what I'm saying is like that is D&D. Like
Yeah,
if you had to like have the DNA
yeah,
that went, and like the way we still got like the thing that snails have the same thing
yeah.
that pine trees have, like there's some characteristic of that cell membrane that
Yes,
is identical
and
and
that
and
cell
persistent.
membrane is the D20.
That's the D20
Yeah.
and rolling to hit and
Can I
rolling for
kick
damage.
this asshole off a cliff?
Right.
Roll a die. Like,
Right. So we'll call that untouchable. That's like, no point in bringing it up.
sure,
But I think the first deviation to talk about, and you brought it up, is initiative.
sure.
So favorite initiative system.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of side initiative. We've been playing Lamentations lately, and Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and holy crap, does side initiative make things go quickly? Especially when you've got a party of a lot of our team is they're playing hit it with my axe characters a little bit,
It's true.
which if that's what you're doing, it's so convenient. Just be like, okay, it's your turn. Everybody roll. Like like let me know. Like let's just get this combat moving. And one of the things I don't like about fifth is how incredibly long combat takes all the time. And I think a big part of it is because you're only asking one player to be engaged at any given time, and everybody else is like audience, which is not great.
It's
Um,
fair.
and because you're only kind of it's like you've got a spotlight that's moving from person to person, it slows people down because they're getting like as a player you don't know what the situation's going to be on your turn until it gets to your turn, and then you have to make a decision based on that information, which is always going to be plotting in my mind.
So I will say I did not when I first started playing.
Mhm.
I did not have that perception of how initiative worked.
Hmm.
I think the second edition was like you roll a d10,
Okay.
and then it was in order d10. But the way that I actually played Dungeons and Dragons at the time was I would just fire off around the table. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you
Yeah.
doing? Without, don't roll, don't bother.
Yeah.
Right. Once I know what you're doing, I will call for your rolls in order and narrate the action as it happens, which prevented people from stacking on each other's or reacting to other people's actions within the same turn.
Hmm.
The idea being that you just tell me what you're trying to do that round, and then we
Yeah.
would go. There's also a variation on side initiative that I know of that I think is core D&D. It actually comes from Chainmail and like from the old wargaming, which is like, yes, it's side D&D, but then within, or it's side initiative, but then within that, you've got missile attack, melee, or missile, is it like move, missile, melee, magic.
Yeah.
And so like what you're doing has an impact on where you fall even within your own turn order. I
Hmm.
thought that was always a really interesting
That does kind of
variation.
help, I think, with the perennial caster problem that pops up in different D&D editions of like, you know, being a caster is a lot of fun, but you can kind of take up a little more space than some other classes sometimes because you've got a big list of stuff you can do. Putting you at the end of the turn, I feel like helps kind of balance that a little bit.
Sleep can make for a very boring round of
Yes,
combat.
yes. The sleep spell is one of those.
It's great fiction. I
It's
mean, it works great for the fantasy.
hmm. It can be difficult though because it's either useless or OP. Like there's very few situations I feel like where the sleep spell is like you're like this is a measured response that will move my party incrementally towards victory. Like it's usually just like oh like do we knock them out and murder them in their sleep or are they is it not going to work like you know
That's fair. That's
yeah
pretty fair. Or are they too powerful for this? I
yeah
guess is the other.
caffeinated.
Um, cool. So okay, so your favorite is side initiative.
I think so. Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna mulligan on this one and say homebrew.
Yeah. All right.
Uh, I just around the table,
Yeah.
and I like doing it where around the table where I will interject monsters
Yeah.
in between member actions at my discretion
That's interesting.
for tension.
You were doing that a little bit, not interjecting, but just doing around the table when we played Index Card RPG the other week.
Index card RPG explicitly has that
Yeah.
as a rule. Now it's not a D&Dism per
No.
se, but if I had to Frankenstein my favorite
Yeah.
D&D, I would just homebrew that in.
If we're eating off of our neighbors' tables here a little bit,
Yeah.
what do you think about the Troika initiative system?
It
Where
is
you
hot garbage.
you don't like it?
No, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it, but I think it's bad.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I'm just
It
getting
wouldn't work with D&D.
yeah interesting. I'm just getting back from Penticon. I was at the Penticton Nerd Convention, which was
Yeah,
awesome. Penticon 2024. Hope to see you there.
yeah, we're going for sure.
But this guy, the barbarian at our first table we played with, he was telling me that he was basically using. I mean, he was like, I invented this 20 years ago in the dawn of days, but he was like basically explaining that he used a troika-like system for D&D initiative where you wrote your name on a thing and you had like an end of round shit and you scrambled them all together and then you draw whose turn it is. And I know they say in the troika rule book that part of the reason they do that is to kind of simulate the chaos of combat and the idea that you might spend a round kind of looking around being like it's
Yeah,
panic.
failing to make any meaningful contact with the
Yeah,
enemy. Yeah,
which I mean it's not for every D&D game for sure, like sometimes
I would say it doesn't work for D&D specifically
mhm,
because your enemy cannot damage you on your attack.
yeah
So the reason it works for Troika
is
is
because
because if the monster attacks a PC in Troika and the PC wins the roll,
they do
the PC
damage.
does damage to the enemy.
Yeah.
This is actually how Troika solves action economy,
Hmm.
and it's fantastic.
It's really
It's
great.
the solution for action economy. In
You
my opinion.
pointed out too, I think, when you were talking about running one-on-one games of Troika, how well it accomplishes like party balance issues as well, where it's like you don't need. It's not like this is for this many PCs. You can just have any number of PCs, and the combat will kind of. I mean, there is a bit of a curve, but like mostly things will just kind of work themselves out.
Largely, the thing you have to look out for there is having too high of a skill number.
Yeah,
If the skill on the enemies is too high and your PC doesn't have
a good weapon
a good
skill.
weapon skill or good the trickiest bit in my opinion in Troika is running. the way that running works
Is a
is
contested run check.
terrible. Yeah,
Yeah,
it basically means it's very likely you will never escape
yeah.
unless
If
you
you're
have
losing a fight, you're probably not getting away.
exactly, and
Interesting.
that's a pretty shitty. But I mean, that's not what that system is for,
No,
right? And that's kind of
hijinks.
what exactly. That's actually one of the things that I like. I think the benefit of that in Troika is that it encourages you to kind of go the other way with it
Yeah,
and try and whip out your crazy etiquette skill and out etiquette the enemy, or
yeah,
diplomacy skill, and like convince them that you're actually in the middle of a treaty time at lunch. It's like, no, we can't fight right now. It's 30 minutes for
yeah,
tea. Do a Bugs Bunny.
yeah.
You're doing a Bugs Bunny. And I think like the Bugs Bunnying that you can get away with in Troika is kind of why that game
Works very well.
shines.
Yeah.
And the hardest part with that is actually convincing players that
Okay.
that's how it works. That's how the
Yeah.
universe works. Like, so yeah, that's kind of my hot take on that.
So, to bring it back to D&D then a little bit,
Yeah,
how about character creation? I feel like that's it's usually right at the front of the book.
sadly,
Sadly, yeah. Well,
yeah,
a good example of play might be nice, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, maybe.
yeah.
Uh,
No, I think yeah, it's interesting. Like the least interesting thing about character creation. So Dungeons and Dragons character creation, best version,
mhm.
basic D&D.
Yes, 100% agree.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And for the flat reason that it's the only one you can get through in like less than 10 minutes
yeah. It's fast, and I'd also like to shout out that I feel like elves, dwarves, and halflings. I feel like
as classes.
yeah, races class. I'm a big fan of because I am so tired of people being like, I'm an elf. And it's like, okay, well, like that's an interesting thing. Like fictionally, it's like, oh, an elf, that's an interesting thing to be because it's not human. So how are you going to play that? Well, I'm going to play it exactly as if I was human. I'm going to ignore the fact that I'm 300 years old. I'm going to work for money. I'm going to, it's just like you're a human with pointy ears. And it really takes, I think, the magic out of being an elf. Whereas to be, to kind of be like, yeah, elf is a class. It's halfway between magic user and fighter. You can do some fighter things, you can do some magic user things. Really helps carve out, I think, an interesting niche uh, for elves. And especially, I honestly, I even like the idea that there are level caps that are a little bit lower for demi-humans than for, fighters or wizards or
Sure.
um, but yeah, I think you're right. Speed is the main thing.
Speed is the main thing. The lack of complexity
Hmm.
is valuable, I think, especially for new players. But even for old hat players, like there's a lot of value in taking the simple aspects of those core classes as core identities and then making them your own in a narrative sense
Yes,
without needing to have the
like a
masturbatory
mechanical.
justification of a mechanical
Yeah.
aspect. Now, that said, right, I think there's interesting things done in modern D&D, with the subclasses and the kits, and like I really enjoyed one of my favorite times of playing D&D was in second edition when you had the splat books.
Hmm.
And those books were full of player options that
Yeah.
were all over the place. One of the things that they did really I thought really well at the time, I've rethought this since, was proficiencies.
Hmm.
Is those kits came with proficiencies that I thought were interesting and evocative, and kind of they were like narrative skills
Yeah.
that you would kind of apply to your character, and that was always really cool. But then they would have these like abilities and stuff that were kind of in there. They weren't really like feats like you got with, I think, 3. You kind of
Yeah.
got feats, and all the way into fifth edition you got feats.
Feats are one thing I would maybe trickle back to that like BX style character creation because I like the like you say, like it's nice to be able to roll something up in 5 minutes. But once you hit level 3, it's kind of fun to be like, you know what, I'm gonna take a little widget.
Think of Zhuzh.
Yeah, a
Zhuzh
little.
it. Yeah,
This guy's got 3 hit dice now. He's probably gonna make it another game.
yeah.
I might as well get
He
a
has
little
figured
bit
out
of
how
depth.
to subtly cast a spell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's fun.
No, I think that's a good point, and yeah, I think feats are something that I don't know that I would backport feats as they exist in fifth edition so
No.
much as what I would probably want to do in a custom Frankenstein version of D&D is after playing with these characters, I would try and pin out what I think would be a cool ability for them to evolve and try and work with the player to develop it
Yeah.
and have it be custom to that character.
So very kind of like DM and player collab to. That's an interesting
Exactly. And I think like
balance would be hard.
but it's almost not necessary because you're customizing your D&D to kind of for that table.
Yeah.
Right? So like yes, it could be hard, but also I helped you develop the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of on me if it's
It
overpowered,
doesn't
at which
work.
point I can have the conversation with you and say, hey, this is actually really throwing some things off. How can we tone it? How can we do that narratively? Maybe you lose the power. Maybe the power changes, over time, becomes something else. Like
5 of your 7 hyenas find another pack.
my God.
Uh,
Okay, so yeah, I think we both know what that was about. Hey, have you played with anything that can summon animals in Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition?
Yeah.
Do you also have a party of 14 things on the
14
table?
hyenas and yeah. Well, like there's Troika action economy for you once again. Eh?
Oh, and I think like action economy as the problem space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've seen anything that tackles it the way that Troika does.
Mm-hmm.
Troika's got a really, really fun way of solving it. Although, arguably, and I have not played it, so don't take my word for it, but I think that Argon game
Mm-hmm.
also
Has an
like
interesting.
it just solves action economy. It doesn't you don't have the problem of action economy, which I think is if you're yeah, I think if you're really trying to get under the hood of like how balance works, you're basically fighting an action economy war of attrition, right?
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Saving throws.
Oh, I got some stuff to say about saving
Let's
throws.
talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
The original BX version of saving throws, the save versus paralysis, save versus death, save versus poison, save versus wands, I fucking hate it.
It's
Like it's
terrible.
so bad, it's so dumb, and
It's very arbitrary.
it's totally arbitrary. And like as a DM,
Very weird.
yeah, like it's too like in Barhack in our Lamentations game, we have one of the common enemies are these little fly-headed goblins who shoot paralytic poisons.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a save versus poison or is that a save versus paralysis? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's so arbitrary. And at the same time, I really liked it when Fifth came out. The ability checks as saving throws, like you make a strength save, or like I really liked that when Fifth came out. And the more I play Fifth, the less I like it. I find that it makes certain spells really overpowered. I find because if it's one of the things where you're like, oh, like int, that's a rare saving throw proficiency. Like it's uh, you run into things where like I'm trying to think of the name of that one specific spell that came out of Tasha's that drove everybody crazy. Mind whip or
Silvery
something.
barbs.
Silvery barbs. Yeah.
Charisma saving throw.
Yeah. That's like or a little while ago when we were playing Fifth Edition, we were playing Pixels and Pagans. The banish spell, I believe, works off a charisma saving throw, and it's just you're gonna look that. All right, we're gonna do a quick fact check.
Keep talking.
Like it's really frustrating as a DM to be like, oh, it's a golem that has 3 charisma because it has no personality, and people are like, aha, I have a charisma saving throw spell that I'm going. You know what I mean? Like it just like it it can be frustrating, and I find that it also necessitates that every single monster needs to have 6 ability scores, and also you need to decide where they're proficient in their saves, which is so much bulk on a monster stat block compared to just being like saves as a fighter, saves as a magic user.
Interesting. So
And
using the hit dice with the saves and stuff.
yeah, part of me wonders, like, I really think the best way to do it is the 3rd edition way, where you have the 3 saving throws. You've got Fortitude, Reflex, and Wisdom saves, uh, and you are like, you know, defining what a monster saves are is as simple as saying it's an 8 hit dice monster, and it gets good Fortitude saves. Like it's like that's its because you'll recall in 3rd edition they had like strong saves and weak saves was kind of how they did it, and then as you went up in hit dice, it was like either you got Jesus, what was it? It's like, your level +1 on a good save, or like half your level on a bad save or something, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, which also avoided the problem in 5th edition, where if you're not proficient in a save, you're essentially saving as a first level character in that save because you're not applying your proficiency bonus, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel like can be a little bit,
Punishing.
yeah, especially when you're dealing with those big boss monsters where you're like, it's a stone golem, like it's a threat to your intent. You're like, yeah, I banish it. And you're just like, oh, okay, he gets a -4 on that save.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I don't think that, like, I think if you're throwing stone golems at wizards
Yeah,
and they have the
banished.
banish spell,
They're gonna
like,
get banished.
you don't, you just deal with that by having 2 stone golems. Like,
That's
they can only banish 1 at a time, right? Like, I think as a DM, if you know that that's going to happen, and you don't want to be frustrated by it,
You
you've got
plan
to
around it a little bit.
pad the encounter with a lightning rod. Mike Shea talks about this, right, where he's like, yeah, you lightning rod abilities that you want to
Give them a big juicy
give them a
target.
big target to get out of the way,
Interesting.
and then kind of deal with it. That's like a good place to put a fat demon, or whatever.
Hmm. See,
Um,
the thing is, though, in that case, if they roll a 20 on their saving throw, now you've got a deadly encounter on your hands because you have 2 hard encounters at once or whatever, right? Yeah. All right. Live and let die.
yeah, let the dice roll, man. Like,
um,
if they hadn't terrified you with their banish, they wouldn't have had to die like that.
there you go. This is your fault for taking
If you haven't
banish.
learned how to blame your players yet, man, you got a
There
lot
we
more
go.
DMing to do.
I'll take this. One of the things I like about the Fortitude Reflex Wisdom save as well is I think it, oh,
Get some French
yeah,
accordionness.
passing mimes. But yeah, one of the things I like about Fortitude Reflex and Wisdom saving throws is I feel like it works really well with the 7 base classes of BX, where, I think you could give demi-humans 2 strong saves. So like elves could have good will and reflex saves,
Right.
dwarves would have good will and fortitude, halflings would have good reflex and fortitude. And then, fighters get good fortitude, clerics get good will, and, thieves specialists get good reflex. And I really like wizards getting no fucking saves. I know I said this to you yesterday. I said wizards eat shit and die, and you were like, "Hold the phone." But like,
I am a
honestly,
pretty consistent wizard player, so I
are
would
you?
feel that. Yeah, I like playing wizards.
I think of you as a cleric guy.
I mean, I play clerics a lot, but that's just because I play with other people.
That's a good point.
And like as a DM,
You
you're
can,
like, well, I could be a wizard and nuke everything in sight and have a fun game,
yeah,
or I can play a cleric and basically do the same thing, but be able to save the party if when shit hits the fan.
that's a good point.
So
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's always kind of bothered me a little bit that wizards get good will saves or good saves against magic or something. I kind of feel like as a wizard, you should be extra vulnerable to all that shit.
that's fair. I think that's an interesting narrative way to take wizards.
Mm.
Sorcerers, I feel like, they're more that. Like, to me, a wizard is a studied magic user. So to like, the whole school of abjuration is the design of spells to
Yeah,
protect you from magical fallibility, and like, that's critical to the, I think, the fiction of a wizard,
okay.
the salt circle, the summoning circle. Like,
I love me a good salt
you
circle.
do, yeah, you do dangerous shit, and so you take lots of precautions.
Okay.
Versus the sorcerer, who is just accidentally magical, does not
Seat of their pants in it.
really fathom the powers that they're dealing with and that they can interact with, and so to me seems like a better candidate for that type of frailty.
That's a really interesting point. Let me ask you this: when you think wizard, what pops in your mind?
Merlin.
Merlin. Interesting. Uh,
John D.
yeah. Well, all right. Fair enough. See, when I think wizard, I think Rincewind from Discworld. You ever read those?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where it's like everything is like the librarian's an orangutan, and like wizards learn magic, but they don't use it because they know better. Like, like
That's fair. Yeah,
uh,
but yeah. I think if you're first of all, let's be honest. If you're basing your notions of fantasy on Pratchett, you're kind of off the path,
that's
right?
fair. You're into Troikaland
Yeah,
anyway.
you're doing
Yeah,
weird shit, and that's fine. I think that's great. Like, I just you know my conception of wizards comes from historical wizards. I like
the John
the
Dees.
John Dees, the Aleister Crowleys. I not that these are good men. I just think they're interesting
Totally.
characters,
Yeah.
and that their devotion to the study of the arcane is it's its own. It's got its own kind of vibe. It's its own
Totally.
flavor. It's a taste that is interesting and bizarre, and I think it makes for a good fantasy. That said, nobody within that cadre of people could even come close to claiming to do half of the stuff in the first
Yeah.
level
Right.
spell book of a D&D wizard.
Well, there is that. Oh God, that what's his name? Abramelin. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
Abramelin the Mage.
yeah.
Well, like you get
Well,
into some.
I feel like his biggest work that he claimed was that he summoned a regiment, right? Uh,
He summoned an army. He
yeah,
had claimed to summon an army.
which is a pretty, like that's a ninth level spell if I've ever, like
911, man.
summon band of killers. Well, phones are magic too.
Right.
No.
But actually, I think that's kind of the counterpoint, right? Is if you look at like the magic of Abramelin the Mage or Aleister Crowley or any of these guys, what they were doing, and actually, I think the farther back you go, the more pointed it is. What their spells do are very explicit.
Mhm,
They help you find lost treasure.
mhm.
They help you protect your stupid kingdom.
Yeah.
Like they're for somebody with a beard to sell an imaginary job to a guy who owns land.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
So all the spells that you see are about doing that. They're about foretelling when you're gonna be attacked next,
Mhm.
or knowing the heart of your enemy. It's protecting your child, or ensuring that you will have an heir.
Mhm.
Really bizarre magics, but those are like that's what magic was
Yeah.
for humans. It's mostly sex. Sex magic, death magic.
Interesting.
And then you've got the necromancy, which is really the
Speaking.
juice. Was all about speaking to the dead. It was all
Yeah.
about getting information.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Anyway,
Interesting. We
interest saving
should,
throws.
you know what? Let's throw this down to another episode. We should talk next time about the differences between real life occult practices and the Vancian style of D&D. That's a good topic for next time.
Next time, let's actually talk about how we would like let's Frankenstein the magic system
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
for D&D, because I have opinions about that too. Like I'm not a huge Vancian magic fan.
I never was, but I actually just read Dying Earth for the first time. And
I'm going through Moorcock right now.
yeah,
Yeah, literally.
Elric.
Elric, yeah.
Yeah, nice. I gotta read. I haven't read that stuff since I was in high school.
To be fair, I'm doing audiobook. I'm
Okay,
not
there you
actually a learned man.
go.
I never learned to read.
I got the milk eyes.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so saving throws. I came down pretty hard in favor of
Third
a
edition.
third edition there. What do
Yeah.
you think?
I'm gonna keep the fifth edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. For reasons that are probably entirely selfish, but yeah, I just feel like they work fine. The
Yeah.
thing about it is that, like, one of the reasons that I don't like having levels affect saving throws
Hmm.
across the board is that it doesn't work with the flat math, and I find that fifth edition's flat math is actually better
Hmm.
by and large
I do like the flatter
than
math.
what we had before.
That's true.
So if it was a trade up,
Hmm.
I would say I'd keep the flat math. I would just keep the stats. Also, I like the idea of an intelligence saving throw. I like the idea of a charisma saving throw. I think if there's a weakness in those notions, is that they aren't used enough, or
Sure.
that there's not enough power in the DM toolkit to adjust it when it's fun, when it's narratively fun, to say, oh, you save versus this trap, but the trap's kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine. So you're gonna need to make an intelligence save to
To
kind of
put your
get what
finger
the fuck
in.
is going on
Yeah.
here, and like
Stop it.
understand it before it spits you out.
Yeah. That's cool.
Shit like that. Yeah, yeah. And
I like that a lot.
I think there's some juice in there that you could really squeeze dry. I think if there's a real downside to that, it's that like that's not for the novice DM.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to be able to find that
To
lever
do it on the fly.
early enough and
Interesting.
use it in an interesting way. Yeah.
I did really like Shadow Dark, the new Kelsey Dion system, for just being like, there are no saves. You make a check, like, you know, like
And I think that's effectively what I'm saying.
yeah,
The proficiency in saving throws as a class mechanism, I think is okay, whatever. It's basically a way of saying, okay, when you level up, you're going to get some
better.
benefit to your saving throws.
Mm.
But yeah, if it was Shadow Dark's saving throw system, I would be just as happy. I don't really particularly care. What you're getting with her system is that flat math.
Yeah, yeah, love a good flat math.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Chelsea Dion's system,
Kelsey.
or Kelsey Dion's system, and this is not to disparage her system at all, because I think it's really good and
Yeah.
clever, is I don't know anybody who's a 10th level Shadow Dark character. I don't think they fucking exist, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, okay, fair.
And
Yeah.
it's entirely possible that they never will.
Yeah.
Like, the system is designed to be deadly. It's designed to be a funnel. It's designed to be kind of this thing that is
Yeah.
supposed to be extremely rare high level characters.
Interesting.
And so I doubt, with some, I think, reasonable assurance. What the fuck was that?
That was a cat.
Ah, nice. I think with some assurance that it has not been tested so thoroughly at those high levels.
Yeah. Well, you know, we got to break into that and play that soon.
It's coming in the mail eventually.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I got
Okay, all right.
the crazy.
You got the crazy?
I got the crazy.
You got
You
the
know
crazy.
me. I'm stupid. I was
Stupid for crazy.
yeah, stupid for crazy. Man. I got Mothership First Edition box set coming. I got the Shadow Dark
Okay.
Kickstart. I haven't read the PDF because I want to.
You want to get the
I
book.
want to touch the book. The cover is
book.
It's the gold leaf
Yeah.
engraved front,
Ugh.
and I know.
Production value. God damn it.
Yeah, it's so sexy. I just want to cuddle it to sleep at night, and yeah.
What else are we talking about? We got saving throws.
Saving throws Thaco. And I only brought up Thaco. I thought of Thaco because second edition had Thaco,
Mm-hmm.
and did third edition didn't have
No,
Thaco.
third edition had base attack bonus.
Right, base attack bonus.
Ascending AC.
And I seem to recall at some point in my second edition journey throwing my hands in the air and saying, "Why is this so fucking complicated?" and just switching it around.
Yeah.
And just handing it to a new player that way.
Yep.
And they were like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, it does make sense." But there was a problem with it, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Like, just doing that, and I think it was you basically exposed the reality that, like, there isn't flat math in second edition.
There's some weird curves on the Thaco
Some
system.
really weird curves on the Thaco system, and adding your modifiers. So Thaco, I think we both
get it out of here.
And what's funny is that actually is the root. Like, if we were to say, like, that's the DNA strand is the attack roll.
Yeah.
Thaco is kind of like the Neanderthal,
Sure.
dying off from the hominid, because it was there from the beginning all the way until second edition.
Yeah, it had a good 30-year run almost.
30-year run. Nuts. Skills and proficiencies. So you were saying you like the Lamentations skill system.
I love the Lamentations skill system. I think it's really, really clever. I am not a fan of the third edition skill system.
What was the third edition skill system?
Oh god, it was the class skills and cross class skills, where you got skill points every level, and at first level you got 4 times skill points, and you could have a skill cap. If it was a class skill, you could have as many ranks in it as your level plus 3, but if it was a cross class skill, you could not do that, and you could only have as many as your level. And it was like, if it's a cross class skill, your points only got you half a rank, and it's just, the math was Pathfinder math, where it's like, oh, it's a DC fucking 40, like, but good thing you have a plus 33, so, like, just, and I mean, like, there's some great, like, I don't, like, you ever read that copy pasta, the Sir Barrington?
No.
Oh my god. Okay, so in third edition, you could use to fake that you spoke a language that you didn't actually speak, and it was like a DC like 30, 40. It was a high DC. But this guy somehow convinced his DM to let him play a bear, and he had a good he took some rogue levels or something, so he
Okay.
could fake that he spoke English. And throughout the entire campaign, he'd be rolling to fake common until finally, and then pretend he was a person. Until at the end of the campaign, finally he rolled a 1, and somebody was like, "Hey, this guy's a bear," and they were like, "Oh yeah," like they escort the screaming butler out of the room as he yells that you're a bear, and everybody's like, "I'm so sorry, Sir Barrington. Like, please forgive the butler. He's new." Like, um, which like I love that stuff. Like I love like you rolled you got a nat 20 and you have a plus 20 on your sleight of hand. You fucking stole his heart, baby. Like you ripped it out of his. But
Yeah.
it's also very farcical. Like
I mean, it's farcical, but it's also it's good fun storytelling.
mhm,
And I think like it depends on what you're at the table, what you're trying to do at the table.
mhm,
But if you're willing to go there with your party and have that kind of fun,
mhm.
you can have a much more gratifying experience than I think you will if you are trying to retell the Wheel of Time,
That's a good point.
for instance, right? Like, and I think that that might be one of the traps that DMs fall into often is that
Serious.
they have a serious mentality about the fiction they're trying to emulate or the experience they're trying to present at the table, and they're kind of unwilling to accept
Yeah.
that it's just technically more fun to laugh with your friends
Yeah.
and have that good time, and then enjoy the seriousness when it works,
Mhm.
because seriousness works
When people buy in.
when people buy in, and people buy in when they're engaged and invested. It almost always, like, I've had some games where the table was crying,
Yeah.
like legitimately emotional things happening at the table, and almost bar none, they were towards the end of sessions where we had spent the whole time
Joking.
laughing and joking and connecting and building an emotional bond together that then turned into, when I reached for tragedy, they reached with me and we got there together.
It's interesting that you say that. When I was younger, one of my former favorite writers, who turned out to be a shitheel, and I'm mad at him.
Don't ever admire anyone, is the
Yeah,
lesson.
people are bad.
Yeah, humans suck.
Yeah,
And yeah, your heroes will make you regret making them
lousy
heroes.
meatbags.
Anyway, go on.
But he had an axiom that the basic structure, like he was like the trick of television basically is that you introduce a character, that character is funny, you care about the funny guy dies, we all cry that the funny guy is gone. Like that's how you
That's the
do
arc.
tragedy. Like
Yeah.
like um
It's a comedy until it's not.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it like life, like yeah, if it's not funny, then when bad things happen, it's kind of like, well, these are sad people, they live sad, like um but but anyway, I to pull it back to the lamentation skill system.
Yeah. Skills.
um
Skills are preferences.
I think I really like that system because I feel like it's very easy as a DM to pull numbers out of your ass and be like,
Okay.
this door is stuck, but an average guy has about a 50% chance of opening this door. So it's a 3 and 6 door. You have a +2 to open doors. So you need to roll a 5 or lower to kick down this stuck door. Like it's very fast, and getting a +1 bonus on a d6 is nice and meaty. If you have if you have 18 intelligence in Lamentations and you have that +3 bonus to languages, like that's kind of worth building a character around almost, depending on the DM. Like, but in my game, where I don't know if you've noticed, but like basically everything is behind a language gate, and none of you guys have any language skills. So it's been a little
I have no
frustrating.
idea what you're talking about.
No, yeah,
What?
well, yeah,
I mean, my character has no idea what
yeah,
anybody is talking about. He just
ever.
kills things
Um,
for fun and profit.
but I feel like it's a good breakdown of skills in Lamentations. I like it a hell of a lot better than the BX, that awful thief skill chart with the percentile die makes me want to pull my hair out.
So I'll say, actually, I think there's two things here.
Hmm.
One is, how do you treat the thief class?
Sure.
Because it is a particular collection of skills. How you do it, and the fact that thieves can do it and specialists can do it
Yeah.
in Lamentations is its own critter.
Hmm.
In second edition, this was also shared with the Bard. Bard had some subset of the thieves skills. That was
Hmm.
an interesting part of what made a bard a bard. And so taking that skill system, I'd probably go with you and say, yeah, Lamentations probably has one of the better implementations of it. I don't think that it's that great, but it is way fucking better than percentile die. Percentile die being the default across the board, which like Blueholme has percentile die. I think all the BX,
OSC.
OSC has the percentile die stuff. Now, the cool thing about percentile die is that it's a thing we already think in. We think in terms of percentages. It's an easy. You said it yourself. 50% of the time, it's a 1 and 3. It's a 3 and 6.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a 50 and 100.
Yeah.
You know, so it's pretty easy to get there.
Yeah.
I think from a D100 perspective, the thing that I think it suffers from the most, and this is kind of all of them, is it's got that same problem that saving throws has, where it's just extremely arbitrary. It doesn't really account for there's the variety of things you could be doing, and yeah, I think that isolates that. So as far as classes go, if I had to like, okay, we're doing the thief over again, fine, we could use 1 and 6, or you know, a D6 system. Doesn't matter to me. Probably just use the lamentation system. Sounds great, fine.
Yeah.
Skills and proficiencies, I think I really like 5th edition's like skill system in terms of the rest of the skills.
Yeah.
And I think what's weird about that is that thieves basically don't get
anything too special.
They're just like everybody else. Like you can have a wizard who's just as good at deception or sleight of hand as a rogue.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the things I love about 5th and one of the things I hate about it. Like, it's like, I do really like that, like, Dr. Deuce Stanner, you can play a barbarian who has 16 intelligence, proficiency in medicine. You're as good at it as anybody, right? Like, which is awesome when you want to play a doctor who turns into a monster and eats people.
And I think what, like, the type of play you're talking about is optimizing for a narrative. And I think that 5th edition does that really well. And one of the reasons it can do that so well is because flat math and the skill system.
Yeah.
Which cleverly enough replaced the need for a rogue specific skill system. What do they get in return? Backstab. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not the end of the world, you know.
Yeah.
You're effective in combat. It's really fun.
Yeah, cutting action's cool.
Cutting action's great. Yeah, you get some cool stuff as a rogue. So I don't know. I feel like if we had to have a class with skills separated from everybody else's skills, I would go with Lamentations style. If that was not a requirement, I'd go with 5th edition skills.
I do like the way Lamentations, like, as a specialist, you can be like, you know, you don't have to take climb, you don't have to take open locks. You can be like, I am a specialist who kicks down doors. I'm Johnny Door Kicker. I put all my points into open doors, and I'm just as good at it as the strong guy over. You know, like, I like that.
Oh yeah,
the equivalency. One of the things I do really like about the 5th edition skill system, though, that they mentioned kind of early on in the books, they kind of go out of their way to be like, you know, there are no skill checks. There are ability checks,
yes.
And then you can add a proficiency bonus to that if you can convince your DM it's relevant. And they kind of go out of their way to say, like, look, listen, I think the other day you were saying, like, you can do dexterity sleight of hand, but you can also do intelligence sleight of hand
or charisma sleight of hand.
Yeah. And, you know, like, we don't even really need to explain how each of those 3 differed, because I feel like it's just very intuitive, and it's great as a DM to be like, oh yeah, this is a, you know, this is an animal handling check because you're trying to calm a wild horse,
but it's
you
a
need
strength animal handling
you need
check,
to wrestle this horse to the ground. And that's really cool. Unfortunately, they basically, like, they bring that up and then they basically ignore it, and then on the character sheet it's like dex, acrobatics, like, you know, it's, they really nail everything together, which is not, you know, it really sells the idea short. I think I really like the idea that those things can be separated.
I would, yeah. I think, like, I get why they did that. It makes a lot of sense to have the default be available for easy rolling and quick go. The problem with it is that it then turns into the players going, I want to make a perception check. And they, like, and the DM doesn't have the tools or whatever to say,
Yeah.
don't roll if I don't ask you to.
Yeah.
But then also has the problem of saying, okay, like make a perception check. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you're not even going there. You're not saying wisdom check,
Wisdom. Yeah.
right? Um, and so yeah, I think like as a DM, if you can figure out how to tuck that into your toolkit, you're going to be fine with it,
Hmm.
and it's not going to matter. But then you're going to get on D&D Beyond, and you're going to be like, well, how do I roll that?
Yeah.
And there's no tool for that on there.
No.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the gotcha with that. I think we've circled the drain of skills quite a bit,
Sure.
so we can move on at this point. We're getting on in time here. We did want to give a brief shout outs. A sorry you didn't honorable mention
Moment of
to
silence.
Moment of Silence to Fourth Edition
Yeah.
and Pathfinder, who have found only token reference in our collective examples, largely because I didn't really play Fourth Edition. I was married and in service of my wife and her children
Sure.
at the time
Yeah.
that
You were
Fourth Edition
playing
was
humans
out.
in houses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was being beaten down by corporate. Yeah, marriage.
Corporate marriage.
Yeah.
Corporate marriage. Yeah. Um, yeah. I will say, just to kind of shout out two things that I like from Pathfinder First Edition and from Fourth Edition D&D. In Pathfinder, I thought it was great that they went back and they really gave every level, every time you level up in Pathfinder First Edition,
Yeah.
something cool happens.
Yeah.
Which is great because in Third Edition it was not that way.
No, that's fair. Second
Yeah,
edition, same.
yeah. And like the class feature bloat, like the options bloat in Fifth Edition, is a real, it's there and it's not awesome, but and it kind of stems back to Pathfinder a little bit, but that was something at the time that I was like, this is really great. And I think finding ways to kind of like bring those options in is important. One of the things I liked out of Fourth, and like you, I never played, but I did read it pretty extensively. MOOCs. Do you remember the MOOC rules from
Yeah,
Fourth?
yeah, yeah.
I'm working on a Troika adventure right now, and I'm kind of tempted to just be like, yeah, MOOC rules. They all have one stamina. If you hit them, they're dead. Like,
Sure.
I feel like that works really, really well narratively. There's so many times when you want to just be like, yeah, you have to fight the goons, like like this is, you fight the goons and now you get through to the boss, like,
Yeah.
and you don't want to take a long time with the goons, you just want people to feel badass. And like, I think that giving those henchmen 1 HP is a brilliant idea out of Fourth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's been carried over by enough people at this point
Hmm.
into fifth edition and
Yeah.
other systems. It's such a good idea. I think it transcends system.
Yeah.
My one of the things that I thought when I first was exposed to fourth edition, the
Hmm.
ideas in it was, oh man, this looks really cool. I wish I could play this video game.
Yeah.
And uh, what I did actually try playing fourth edition once, and I remember being like, man, this game is awesome. It's too bad it's unplayable.
Hmm.
Like, meaning there's so many cool things that can happen and that are like triggered off of each other, and it's got so much stuff going on. And as a mere mortal human, it is completely impossible for me to have all that in my head
Yeah.
and do it and keep track of it and get it right. And I feel like 80% of the time that we were engaging with the rules of fourth edition, we were backtracking to repair
Oh, things we had
something
missed.
we had missed.
Yeah.
And that made the game effectively unplayable for the group I was with, who was trying to adjudicate rules. And I remember at that point going, okay, never mind. We'll go back to Pathfinder. And so I went and I grabbed Pathfinder and actually ran my first game back into D&D in 2018 after a couple years of taking a break or whatever.
Mhm.
Was was Pathfinder, and it was the Strange Aeons adventure path. It was a Call of
Okay.
Cthulhu style adventure path where they
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
off in this insane asylum, and we had a blast. It was just so much fun. We had a great time. I got the occult book or whatever with
Mhm.
the occult character options, and So yeah, we just had a ton of fun playing it. And then after that, somebody played 5th edition with me, and I was like, oh, they fixed D&D.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. So we went to on to 5th edition. But actually, the big divergence from Pathfinder to 5th edition for me was going back to gridded combat.
Hmm.
Because when I played Pathfinder, I was just doing theater of the mind.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't have stuff at the table. I got a map, and
Interesting.
some ideas.
I think of you as like a real grid and minis guy, like, or like I
That
just
is a new. That is a
it's a
recent,
development.
the last 5 years kind of development
Interesting.
where after this friend of mine played 5th edition, he ran 5th edition for us, and it was my first time playing it, and he had minis, and it was so much fun. I just had so much fun playing at the table with the mats
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff, that I was like, oh, dude, oh, I forgot about this, because we used to play with minis in 2nd edition,
Yeah, yeah,
but we didn't have. I was broke. I didn't have
yeah.
like good minis. It was kind of shitty. I didn't like paint and stuff. So it was recently that I got into painting the minis and building terrain
Mm-hmm.
and doing all kinds of cool stuff. And so when I was running the games in California, before I moved up here, like Road to Valhalla, they had taken out this. They had to go take out this castle in Helheim,
Mm-hmm.
and so I built this like cardboard
Yeah,
like castle and painted it,
that's cool.
and they fought their way through it, and then like once they took it, it was their castle, and so that's where they would
Mm-hmm.
like go out of and stuff. And I don't know, that strategic combat, gridded combat became like it's another hobby
Yeah,
in a way.
sure.
And I hate the diagonal 5 foot. I hate that. I would actually rather have hexagons or use a ruler
Yeah.
if I.
The Games Workshop use a ruler system is a lot of there's an appeal there.
There's an appeal to it, but it's absolutely too fiddly to
Yeah,
bother with for, I would say, 95% of players.
really.
Like, I don't. The thing is I don't want to, like you've said this before. 5e combat's already slow,
Yeah,
and stopping to have to do the rulers and the
yeah.
templates and stuff really slows it down even more.
That's one of the things in Roll 22 where it's like, give me a second, I got to roll my 20-foot radius sphere for my fire. It just takes so like long to be like, how do I arrange this to hit the most of these guys without nailing my guys? Like, it's just,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. There should be. Yeah, well, we can talk about that later. Although, actually, I think this is kind of one of our last topics. We were talking about theater of the mind, and
I'm a hardcore partisan for theater of the mind.
yeah,
I think it makes everything faster and like I'm not playing to play war games, right? Like
right,
I wanna get into the story, I wanna get to weird stuff, I wanna get to the jokes. I want combat to move quick.
yeah,
Um,
and yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. It comes down to what are you at the table for? What are you trying to do at the table?
yeah,
And there is a contingent of people at the table who are there to play war games,
yeah,
and there is another contingent of the table who is there to do improv comedy.
yes,
And you are in that other
yeah,
group. You're in
yeah,
that latter group. But I'll tell you, I'm there. I'm there for both of them.
yeah,
Like I like both.
yeah,
I do really appreciate and enjoy when a combat is clear and well won, or challenging. I like
hmm,
it when it's like hard to think through and like figure out the way to win. The right
yeah.
solution to the problem. Combat as a puzzle
Has it a lure?
has an allure. It definitely makes me feel smart when
Yeah,
I get things right, or it makes me think about things in new dimensions, and that feels like I'm learning things like that.
interesting.
So I think that I think the caveat with that is that just throwing down a mat of a grid and
Hmm.
having a bunch of minis on it does not a compelling combat make,
No,
right? Verticality is almost always, cover and verticality are kind of prerequisites to having an interesting combat,
hmm,
and that doesn't really work very well in theater of the mind without some without doing a little bit of legwork.
yeah, a little bit of talking about a map or
You got to do zoning,
interesting.
and so what I've seen work really well is zones
Hmm.
where you're like, oh, okay, so the combat scene is broken up into the
Here's the
main
bridge.
floor.
Here's the side of the cliff. Here's that side of the cliff.
Exactly, or like you're in the office, so there's the main floor, there's the desk area,
Yeah.
there's the closet, door, and those are like the three areas. Then you've
Mhm.
got your exit. Okay, where are you standing? Where are you going within these zones? And using those to represent how cover and distance and things work. But again, that's kind of the you gotta be willing to go there, get there, figure out how you're going to describe it, and then you could be using at that point a tactical Venn diagram, right? Where you're like,
Tactical Venn diagram has a nice, I think, yeah,
or flowchart. Yeah,
that's
it's
the
like,
name of our Vietnam RPG we're about to write, right? Tactical Venn diagram.
oh man.
Uh,
All right,
let's recap. What is your Frankenstein D&D?
my Frankenstein D&D, I think, is largely fifth edition.
Yeah.
It is. It's got the
Okay.
skills. It's got the saving throws. It's got the flat math.
Yeah.
I like the spell lists from older editions. I think I would
Sure.
probably
Yeah.
pull some good spells from second edition
Absolutely.
and different things. I'd probably ditch feats and do custom feats.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I think by and large, what else is there? Like
Yeah.
saving throws. I think the fifth edition saving throws are fine.
I think for me, I do the classes from BX. I do skill systems from Lamentations. I do saves from third. And I think I definitely want to keep some things from fifth, like advantage and disadvantage. I think is a fantastic rule. And yeah, you're right. There is something to be said about how some other classes get to access that thief magic in fifth edition. Maybe backporting the background system could be an interesting way to kind of help with that.
I think backgrounds are the weakest way that that's done. Actually,
You
I
think
think,
so?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that that's like how it's done, but I think backgrounds are a low flavor. Like they're not as cool as they could be. They'd actually be more interesting if there was more in backgrounds. I think
Hmm.
I'd like, yeah, I'd like the idea of backgrounds as classes.
Yeah, interesting. Like you
And
take a
then you're
0
getting
level.
way into like Troika land, where it's
Yeah.
like you just yeah. But psionics.
Oh God. Carcosa. It's got to be
It's got to be
Carcosa.
Carcosa.
Carcosa's got great psionics.
Okay. So you heard it here, folks. The right Frankenstein is Carcosa.
Oh God. Don't play
Don't
Carcosa.
play Carcosa. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, it was super fun hanging out with you again, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you are a fan of our work, you can pick it up on
Mm-hmm.
Drive-Thru RPG, itch.io, or on our website at WatcherDM.com. You
Mm-hmm.
can also go join our Patreon,
Yeah.
patreon.com/WatcherDM. If you are unfamiliar with our work, you should check out our new adventure guide uh, playlist on YouTube, where we're adding adventure guides for all of our
Yeah.
new stuff.
Walk you through all the individual adventures.
Yeah, we are working on new adventures right now. So I'm working on Horde of the North Wind for fifth
Mm-hmm.
edition. That's going to be coming relatively soon. I'm also finishing up Miss Quinn's Strange
You
Sweets.
are.
Yeah, yeah, as a collaboration with the rookie DM that
Yeah.
we started years ago at this point,
Long time.
long time, with art from Maya
Babino?
Babineau, who did the art for Doom Desert. So
Yeah.
really cool to reconnect with
Fantastic
that.
art.
Really good stuff. And then yeah, I think we're still plugging away at doing Revengers Disassembled for
Yep.
Troika.
Mm-hmm.
So expect more things in 2024 from
Yeah.
Watcher DM. Also, go check out our Bloody Bell Boots Boogie Kickstarter, which you can go follow now. Once we get to 1,000 followers, we're going to go live with it. So get your 1,000 friends and come join us.
Yeah.
And come join us this next Tuesday. So it'll be the next Tuesday after this comes out, October 31st at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be doing a live drawing for 10 print versions of QuestCrawl, be a giveaway.
It's a great game.
So it is a great game. We played it. We've enjoyed it. It is actually being entered into a bundle that will be available soon. But if you want to get your hands on rare, these are the only available from us print versions of the QuestCrawl zine. We're giving away 10 of them. To get your hands on them, you need to go to the QuestCrawl tutorial video and comment, enter me in the drawing into that video before October 31st, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, at which point we will be picking our 10 winners. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
And if, I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you will like. I hope you will comment and do all of the digital things that we're supposed to do. But most importantly, I hope you enjoyed hanging out with us. We enjoyed hanging out with each other in front of you.
Yeah. And if you comment in the comments section, then we will comment back, and then we will be hanging out a little bit,
We'll totally
which
hang out with
I
you.
would like a lot.
Austin would like to argue with you on the internet
Yeah,
if
I
possible.
yell at people on the internet so much.
All right,
uh,
cool. Well, I think as they say in the south of France this time of year,
what do they say?
stay weird.
Stay weird.
All right.